Good afternoon, school directors and friends of public education. Thank you for joining us today at the noon hour. This is the second in session of the 2025 legislative session, 95 days to go. We've had a very robust first 2 weeks, and the second week isn't even over yet. But wanted to give you some background on where we've been and where we're going and what we need from all of you to effectively advocate for our shared priorities, as well as where you might want to raise some issue or concern. We also have a few guest speakers today and wanted to share some information. So as we get further into the session, there will be an opportunity to dig into more of the policy details. Some of what we're trying to do is provide you with the structure and the foundation for staying informed and involved. So you're in good company today. Thank you for being here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can kind of see what's ahead for today, and would also just remind you that we record these sessions and post them to the WSSDA YouTube page. And we also, we'll share the agenda with folks who have registered, and that agenda has multiple hyperlinks available that we hope will be useful to you. So while I share my screen. Great, okay. Sorry, just having a little technical difficulty. I'm gonna try that again. Great, that is better. Okay. So it is Thursday, January 23rd, and we like to start with a people's acknowledgement. We acknowledge that our public schools and facilities operate on the traditional lands of Indigenous peoples. And as we begin the 2025 legislative session, we remember that the lands of our state capital were cared for by the people of the Squaxin and Nisqually tribes. We make these acknowledgements to open a space of recognition, inclusion, and respect for our sovereign tribal partners and all Indigenous students, families, staff, legislators, and school board members in our communities. Always also like to start with an in the know, a little tidbit of information that we hope you will find useful. We do hope that you know your legislators. Either you've met with them once or you know them well and have their cell phone numbers and communicate regularly. That's the end goal, by the way, and also that they respond when you text them. But it's really, really important for you to also know which committees they sit on, and those committee assignments may have changed if you've got legislators who are returning this session from previous sessions. So I wanted to just be sure to help you navigate through the legislative website. And I'm gonna just take you to that here real fast so you have the opportunity to see where you might find this information. The new Washington State Legislature Online has some really helpful new functionality. And I would say of that, the legislator page is the best. I don't think I'm sharing this correctly yet. All right, now we're there. So when you navigate to the main page, there's a subtitle here titled Legislators. If you scroll down, you will actually see a full list of all of the legislators, all 147 of them. The improved functionality this year from past years is actually that you see photos, and I'll just go to the first one, and a lot of really great timely information that I would encourage you for your legislators to go in and explore. For the sake of time, I just want to point to the one area that I mentioned earlier, which is their committee membership or committee assignments. Many of our legislators only have 3 committee assignments. Some have 4, some may only have 2. Regardless of which committees they sit on, it's important for you to be aware. Some of the first things that you're looking for is if they sit on either the Senate Early Learning and K-12 committee or the House Education Committee, because that's generally the first policy committee where we see most bills referred that impact K-12. But don't let that fool you, because there are also many bills that impact K-12 that are related to housing, workforce, local government. So WASDA tracks those bills as well, and you will see many bills on our bill watch that aren't necessarily directly assigned or referred to education committees, but might be assigned or referred to other committees, and we need to be paying attention to all of that. So I hear a lot in my role from many of you, what if my legislator doesn't serve on an education committee? Doesn't even matter if I talk to them about a policy issue that either we love or we're concerned about? And the answer to that question is absolutely yes. One, because they may sit on a committee where those bills actually touch outside of education. And two, after a bill goes through their first policy committee, many of them get assigned to a budget committee. So you're looking for House Appropriations, Senate Ways and Means, capital budget, as you see here. And then once it makes it out of a budget committee, then it gets referred always to a rules committee. And that exists both on the House and Senate side. I would call rules sort of the gatekeeper committee of where bills go before and if they actually go to the floor. And what that means when a bill goes to the floor is that it's made it through the policy and budget committees and has been referred out of rules so that it would be voted on by the entire Senate or the entire House. And so all bills go to rules either to continue to move or in some cases to die. So oftentimes when we see that there's a bill that hasn't been referred to the floor yet, but it's made it through the process thus far, it's stuck in rules. And if we know a committee member, if you know a committee member who sits in the rules committee, that's a great place for us to give another nudge to get a bill to a full body vote, either on the House or Senate side. So I just wanted to mention that there's no committee that isn't important to our work. There are a couple that we really have a lens for as it relates to education, budget, and rules. But ultimately, every legislator will have to take a vote on any bill that comes to the floor before it moves to the other chamber. And so every legislator is important for the bills that either we want to pass, we want to change, or we want to stop during a legislative session. So please get to know your legislators' committees and keep an eye on it as a bill progresses, because that's critically important. So that's a little bit of being in the know. And before we go to the rest of our agenda, I'm going to stop my share. And I wanted to let you all know, in case you didn't know already, the strategic advocacy branch that serves to support you and represent you with the legislature is me as a director. And we've been without a second person in our branch full time for quite a while, over a year, in fact. But we were so fortunate. Just 2 weeks ago, almost to the date, a new team member, Levon Williams, joined our team. And I wanted to give him an opportunity to introduce himself and tell you a little bit about who he is and his background. So, Levon, I think I gave you the power of visibility. There you go. Great. If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself so that folks know who you are. And I did link your email into the agenda so they know how to reach you. But thanks for joining, and we're so happy to have you be part of our team.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marissa. I really appreciate that. My name is Levon Williams. I'm the new advocacy and policy analyst at WSSDA. A little bit about myself. I'm originally from the East Coast. I moved out here for a teaching job back in 2015 at a charter school. But a lot of my work been in the K through 12 setting and focusing on, supporting students of color and closing opportunity gaps. And within this role at WASDA, I'm really happy because I'll have the chance to advocate for policies that's in the big three that we'll be supporting, looking at MSOC, SPED, and transportation. So I'll be running through all the bills that come through the Senate and the House and analyzing those policies and how they can impact districts throughout the state of Washington. So I'm really excited to be here and a part of this team, and I look forward to contributing more and seeing you folks.
That's great. Thanks, Levon. Just a little bit. So Levon's been up at the Capitol with me. We've been sitting side by side in hearing rooms, sort of observing what's going on, and excited to have Levon's insight and background and giving him opportunities to lean into opportunities to represent us using member adopted positions. So as you all know, the legislature is a complex entity system, and takes time to get the ground underneath you about all of it. But Levon is an excellent representative of the organization. So happy to have you on board, Levon. Thanks for stepping in. You'll be hearing more from him later.
Thanks.
Okay, so in keeping with the agenda and a little bit more learning before we get into some of the policy issues, I also wanted to have Corey Paulson, who is a colleague that spoke with us last year about the resource TVW. Some of you are familiar at least with being able to access hearings either live or recorded, but that's just really skimming the surface of the resources that TVW has available to help you navigate the legislature, both from a learning perspective, but also from an engagement perspective. And I wanted Corey here to give you some more insight as the head of civics education and development. Thanks for joining us, Corey, and for all that you do. I'm going to turn off my screen, and I think you have run of show here. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Marissa. I'm so excited to be here to talk a little bit about what we do at TVW, but also our department is the education department called Teach with TVW. And I'm going to share my screen in a second, but just to give you a little bit of background on me, I'm a veteran of the classroom, 20 years teaching 8th grade and high school government and American history. And I moved over to TVW to be able to make sure that more of our students understand how our government works so that they could be better engaged when they become adults. So we're excited to share the resources that we have. It's always weird to talk to a webinar, so apologies on that one. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just to start off with and talk a little bit about Teach with TVW, the education wing of TVW. And if you're on the Capitol, you'll see me wandering around all the time at committee hearings and things like that, especially in the education realm, because that's essentially what our students are interested in as well. So this is our Teach with TVW website. And so it is just teachwithtvw.org. Go ahead and jot that down so that it's useful to you. And let me just talk you through a little bit of some of the programs that we have that are for students, but also really for adults, so you can really understand the legislature and what's happening. When you get to our website, the first thing you're going to see is this Capital Classroom Plus program. This is the program that we run through the legislative session, and it is a weekly explainer video that we make every week about what's going on in the legislature that week. So if you clicked on this button, and it's also right here at the top, this will take you to the page here. You can see that we did a video, there's me, on the pre-session. It'll always tell you how long the video is. It comes with a curriculum guide or some lesson plans, also some essential questions. We also did a video on week 1. Our week 2 video is coming out on Friday because it's still week 2. And so our week 1 was kind of on inaugurations and pomp and circumstance. It comes with an inaugural address lesson plan, and the videos are all really short and easy as for teachers, for bell ringer opportunities, but also for just people who are really interested in the legislature and kind of what's happening. These are great ways to just stay apprised of what is going on. So our next one will be week 2. We'll come right at the top of this. For our Capital Classroom Plus program. This goes out to about 800 schools across the state. We're always looking to involve more schools and more civics and government classes from 7th grade all the way through 12th grade. And even like a 4th or a 5th grade classroom could really benefit from these short explainer videos. This week, our video is going to be on the anatomy of a committee room. So kind of who are all these people and what do they do? And so a really short little video that describes that. So that's one of the things that you can find. Another one of the programs that we run is called On the Issues. This is another great way for classrooms, but also adults to find out where do the Democrats and the Republicans stand on a particular issue. So if you click on the Issues, our first episode is on elections and government. And so if you could see these legislative pages, they do some research, they write questions for the legislators, and we go to committee chairs and ranking members play the same question for them, and then they have a chance to answer. And then these run on TVW, and then they give you the chance to see where leadership lies on the same issue. This week's episode is on the environment, and next week's episode is on education. So stay tuned. Coming at you there, and we have Senator Wellman and Senator Harris answering the questions for education, and that will be next week's episode. Those go out on our social media. They also play on TVW, and they're also here on the website. So this is where you really get a chance to hear, like, what do students really want to know, because it's their chance, as well as, again, what is the leadership answering. So those are some of the programs that we run during the legislative session. We also have our traditional Capital Classroom program where we pair lobbyists with classrooms, and they run about 6 to 8 Zoom sessions during a legislative session where classrooms pick bills that they're going to follow, testify on, suggest amendments for, really engage actively in the legislative process. So that's a really exciting program. We have about 15 classrooms running this session. Always looking to add. Contact me if you think that your school would love to, have that in your school. Now, a couple of the other things that I wanted to point out, if you go to civics videos right here at the top, and you go to Civics 101 in 120 seconds. Now, some of you might be familiar with Mike Hoover. He's kind of all over the legislative building, lobbyist. He did a whole series for us on a variety of different topics about how the legislature works. So you can see there's one on what is the law, what is the legislature, what are policy committees. These are all really short, easy to understand videos for, again, the classroom, but really just for people in general of how does the legislature work. So that's one of the series that we have. You can see there's 17 different videos, but they're all really short. I think the longest one is maybe 3.5 minutes. That's why it's 120 seconds ish. If you go back to civics videos and go to Legislative Navigator, like Marissa said, the legislative website is so much better this year. It just makes me so happy. It used to be very hard to understand. As those of you who've been around a long time know that the transition is really lovely, but we still remade this year all of our Legislative Navigator videos for the new website. So if there's things that you want to know about how to navigate the legislative website and how to find certain things, or if you just want to tell somebody else, hey, how do you find out who your legislator is, or how do you look up a bill, how do you sign up to testify, all of these videos show you how to do that. And I'll let you play them on your own, one, because it's me showing you how to do that through the website, and watching myself on screen, a little bit nerve-wracking for me, but they're there. They walk you through the whole process, and there's some kind of tricks of the trade also within these videos. So again, these are just right up here in the civics videos, Legislative Navigator right there. Additionally, just some of the other things on our Teach website, as you can see, is we have lesson plans, just galore, so many. We did a whole Elections Explained series. These are all here for you. There's videos and lesson plans, discussion questions that go along with everything that we do. So please share far and wide. There's a couple other things that I wanted to show you before I'm done. Here is our TVW website. So before we were on the Teach website, this is the TVW website. You log on here. The first thing you'll see is just kind of the recent and upcoming videos of what has been happening. If you scroll down, it's broken into legislative. You can browse by category. These are our produced programs that we make down here. Most watched, this was just a couple days ago, floor debates. But you might be most interested in this search bar at the top. Search TVW videos and news. Here's my piece of advice for you. Don't search here. Go to advanced search. Your advanced search is going to be a much better way for you to find the information that you need. Select the dates that you're looking for. and the name here, this is going a search term here. This is going to be much easier for you to find. It narrows things down a lot faster. So going to advanced search, and there's also a video on this in the Legislative Navigator as well. So you can see how to search on the TVW website. The other thing that I want to show you is if you click on that bar, this menu bar on the left, and you scroll down to on the issues. I showed you our on the issues that we do. TVW also uses those students on the issues for their on the issues page. So if you scroll down and you find, well, I already pulled it up, but the one that's on education, we will collate all of the things that are happening on education to this page. And so it's just becoming live right now because it's, just the second week. But you can see there is the interview of Inside Olympia is already on there. You have the committees that we're running. All the boards, that agencies, boards, and commissions that deal with education are a direct link there. You can click here to follow any bills that you're looking for. So this is all available for you on the issues page. And the last thing that I want to show you is, I know that Marissa highlighted this part, but I just want to make sure that everyone knows that at the bottom of your bill page, and this I will tell you about this in our Legislative Navigator page series as well. But if you scroll right down to the bottom, this will be the link for any available TVW videos. Like you probably already know, we film everything that happens in the Washington State Legislature. We're incredibly transparent, and this is where you will find the link. These links will be the same. So this one is from the 21st. Was up there on the 21st. It's still the same link now on the 23rd. So you could share that out again and again, and the link won't change. So that's there. The last thing that I want to put up there is, and I certainly will take any questions at any time, is this beautiful QR code right here that you could scan with your phone right now, which will take you to sign up for our newsletter. I encourage you to sign up for our newsletter because this is where you'll get our recent episodes of Capital Classroom Plus. You'll get any updates on education bills that are running through the legislative session right now because we report out to classrooms, so education bills are what they're interested in. I'm working on our newsletter that's going out tomorrow right now. Well, not right now, but in a moment. And so if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll have access to all that. You'll also get our weekly on the issues episodes. So you'll see those coming out, seeing those great, wonderful students that we work with all the time in action. They're so impressive, and you'll have a chance to see those just right away. And then you can share them with your, teachers, your principals, your school directors, and then everybody has access to all of the great work that these students are doing and involving them more in the legislative process. I think that's all I have for for TVW at the moment, but please feel free to email me with any other questions.
Thank you so much, Corey. I don't see any questions for you in our Q&A. I invited folks to send you some questions there. That is a ton of information available at our fingertips. So I appreciate you sort of highlighting them, exposing them. So hopefully folks know how to access them better. If for some reason in the future, they're like, I remember that presenter from TVW told me about that thing. How do I learn more about it? What's the best way to get a hold of you, Corey?
Yeah, I would just, you can email me at corey.paulson@tvw.org.
At tvw.org. And that's PAULSON?
Correct.
Right. I'm putting it in the chat so folks can see
Yep,
it.
that is correct.
That's great. Thank you for being here with us, for sharing some highlights, and recognize that you do so much work to help make Washington State government that much more transparent and accessible. And
We're trying it out.
we're doing it. It's democracy and appreciate it.
That's
And
right.
appreciate your work. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Corey. Okay, great. So I imagine lots of you want to get into the nitty-gritty of some bills, and so that's what we'll spend the remainder of our time on, just to sort of fill you in a little bit on where we're at in the agenda. We are going to have Melissa Beard, who is the WSSDA Vice President, join us for a little dialogue around material supplies and material supplies and operating costs, MSOC. I almost took the words and the acronym and put them all together. But she is not available for a little bit longer. And so I'm going to skip this part of the agenda and move a little bit to what happened this week and what to look at for next week. And I'm going to start with the positive and then draw your attention to some places for potential concern. So I just wanted to let you know that in the Senate Early Learning and K-12 Committee just yesterday on Wednesday, they heard early, I wouldn't even say early action, but a little bit of early action. They brought forward 3 of the topics that are included in WSSDA's member adopted priority to include special education, material supplies and operating costs, and student transportation. We assembled a panel that included representation for WSSDA by our own executive director, Tricia Lubach, who was joined on a panel with Joel Ani, who's the executive director of the Washington Association of School Administrators, or WASA, as well as Melissa Stone, who is the secretary for the Washington State PTA. We thought it powerful that our administrative organizations, in partnership with parents, presented a unified message around support for advancing these very important funding related policies. Really cool that they already heard it in the second week. Sometimes they wait to hear budget bills a little bit later in the session. So that indicates to us that they are looking at this early and intend to move something forward. What it is remains to be seen, but I will tell you that if we look at week 3, 3 of these bills are scheduled for executive session. And so one thing just to note, it's not a crystal ball per se, but it does give you an indication about where the legislators are thinking about moving bills. Sometimes they hear bills in committee as a courtesy or to have a conversation or to learn a little bit more about the subject. But when they schedule bills and then in a week schedule for them executive session, then that essentially means they plan on voting the bill out of committee to move it to the next phase of the bill progression. So in this case, all of these bills that I have highlighted here have been scheduled for executive action next week. So it's the Peterson version of the special education funding bill, and then the MSOC bill, as well as transportation. Just a note that I will show in a moment a side-by-side of the special education bills and their difference. There are strengths in both of them. They have to move one of them forward as a vehicle, but I think we have an opportunity to influence how the bill that moves forward also brings the strength of 5307. And so I'll be looking to all of you for insight there. I would also note that 5192 on MSOC is about a third to a fourth of the total amount of the House version of the bill. The House version of the bill is 1338, House Bill 1338, which is prime sponsored by Representative April Berg, a former school director from the Edmonds and Everett school districts, and co-sponsored by many other legislators. So I'll talk in a minute about the week 3 schedule, but the House version of the MSOC bill would be our preference, surely because it's a higher amount per pupil by a significant amount. My understanding is that bill has some obstacles in terms of reaching the finish line just because it is such a big number. But we want at least a courtesy hearing next week so that we can bring forward the elements of need, and we'll again testify, we hope, next week in House Appropriations, which is going to hear some bills related to these issues already, and I'll show that in a moment. And then lastly, just an overview on 5187 on STARS, the bill would do two things. It would advance resources for some special passengers, most specifically students who are experiencing homelessness in accordance with McKinney-Vento requirements. So it would ensure more predictable and more adequate resources to transport students to and from their basic education requirement from wherever they are to their home school district. So we testified in support of all these bills because it is a signal to us that they heard us about the funding gaps currently present in our K-12 system. But we need them to keep these conversations going further. And we really hope that if they're not going to update the STARS formula to address the actual costs for all students, we want to continue having the conversation and being at the table. So good bills, some of them not quite good enough, but we're going to keep participating in the conversation. So the 95 days ahead of us keep these issues on the table. So that's a little bit about our funding areas. I'm just going to check real fast. I'm going to stop my share so I can pull up some additional resources and see some of our other panelists have popped in. Not yet. See if we've got some questions. So Jackie asked a question about were or are there any amendments to bills during committee? Not yet. It's a little earlier in the game for amendments to come forward. I think we can anticipate seeing amendments proposed to bills starting next week. And the way that you find those is when they've been scheduled either for a hearing or for executive session. You will see in the committee materials, which is a smaller font size, but will be highlighted in green. There will be a little subfolder that's titled AMDS. That's for amendments, and you'll see what amendments have been brought forward. STARS is an acronym for Student Transportation Allocation Reporting System. In other words, it is the formula that is baked into the Revised Code of Washington, or the RCW, that identifies what school districts get for transportation. And it has not been updated in many years, I believe over a decade. And there have been some things that have changed in terms of transportation needs, both for transporting students to and from wherever they are to their home school district, as well as costs for bus maintenance, fuel, storage, et cetera, et cetera. So the STARS formula itself has not kept pace with the changing needs of our transportation system. And that's what we are asking for. Testimony from OSPI yesterday about the transportation bill was encouraging. Another element of the transportation bill would be that OSPI conducts a study about what the actual needs are and therefore the actual cost necessity. OSPI was clear. They already have that number ready. They don't need 3 years to study it again. A lot of this has already been studied. It's their understanding that the legislature wasn't quite ready to fund it at the current need and therefore put the study in place to sort of delay it. But they were very direct about we don't need to study it. We know what we need. We're ready now. If you'll hear the case. So great questions. Thanks for asking them and modeling using that Q&A. I am going to pull up where you can find bill information on the WSSDA website in case you haven't done so, and just a little bit about timing on how we post information. Oops, hold that thought. So I am hoping that you are seeing a Bill Watch page on WSSDA's website. If you are not, please somebody let me know in the Q&A. Oh, great, I see a thumbs up. Thank you for communication. I appreciate that. Webinars are hard because I can't see people. So on the WSSDA legislative updates page, if you go to advocacy, there's a down list and you go to legislative updates here, that'll take you to this page. You should be familiar because you had to register for this here. In sessions will be, so the Friday publication will be posted here. This is last week's. We'll have another one on Friday. The recordings for this will be posted here. So we've got last week's there. Some background information about how to engage. And then first link under tools and information is Bill Watch. That will take you to the See Bills WSSDA is tracking. And when you pull that up, Levon and I worked this morning to update so that our entire bill watch list is updated with all of the education related bills that have been filed thus far, and there will be more. And there are a lot already. Not all of them will get hearings, but because this is a long session, we have until February 21st actually to hear bills in committee before the first cutoff. But what you're seeing in front of you is the schedule actually for this afternoon. But what I wanted to point you to more relevantly is starting on the 27th, which is next Monday, what bills are up next week. And a couple things for you to just look at. I referenced that if you see a bill has been scheduled for executive session, that is a signal that that committee plans to move it out of committee. And so you'll see quite a bit here in House Education. They heard these three bills this morning. 1296 WSSDA testified as other. We do have some concerns about that bill and the implications, one for actually penalizing students and the other adults in the building when either a school director or a member of the staff breaks the law. The bill would lay out, it really is duplicative. OSPI already has the authority to withhold funds from school districts if laws have been broken. And but places them in an even more sort of adversarial role in that regard. And we have great concern about that. And then, of course, we are always concerned about the threat of withholding dollars for wrongdoing. Ultimately, that will impact the students and the staff who should not be penalized when someone else has done something woefully outside of the law's parameters. So we express those concerns. We're working with the bill sponsor, Representative Stonier, with the hope that we'll get some amendments on this that would reiterate the current law, which allows anyone in the case of a discrimination suit to file a complaint with the Attorney General's office and follow due process. We would defer back to the existing process already in statute and take OSPI out of that mix, and then appeal to the legislators, the representatives' interest in protecting other students and staff by not actually withholding funds from the entire school district in those cases, but instead that when there is wrongdoing or breaking the law, that it's the person who did the wrongdoing and breaking the law that's penalized instead. So to whatever degree you and your leadership, including your chief financial officer, have the ability to weigh in on this bill and the Senate version of it, which are not exactly the same. That bill number is 5179 on the Senate side. We would encourage you to weigh in with your concerns directly with Representative Stonier on the House side and Senator Wilson on the Senate side. So I got distracted as we were coming down here. So you will see in early learning K-12, like I mentioned before, they are planning on moving those three funding bills to Senate Ways and Means. That's good news for us. And then I also wanted to point out that next week in House Appropriations, they are hearing the House versions of special education funding, MSOC funding. 1356 is the I'm sorry, I said the wrong number earlier. It's 1356. That is the big bill around MSOC funding. I'm wrong there. 1338 has not yet been scheduled. So these three bills have been scheduled in House Appropriations. We want to see 1338 added to this list. If you have connections with anyone in House Appropriations, your own legislators, we would ask that you send them a message and encourage them to add the House MSOC bill to their hearing next week so that we can testify in support of that adequate funding bill. And also encourage you to testify in support of these bills, either you or your superintendent or chief financial officer. That'll be an important place for you to do so. So that's where the bill watch is. Sorry for me mumbling some numbers there. There's lots to track in this session. I don't have my numbers memorized yet, but I promise I will get there. I think I have a question in the chat. I just want to thanks, Jim. Jim Kalkowski mentioned that 5009 was heard in Senate Early Learning in K-12 today. This is the bill that would allow districts to receive funding and depreciation for vehicles other than a yellow school bus to transport students. The Public Service Employees organization is asking for an amendment to strike out the last paragraph. And there's some concern that the original bill would allow districts to employ individuals who don't have a CDL. We did sign in pro on that bill, but would encourage you, if you also had a strong opinion about ensuring that only CDL endorsed drivers were driving your students to and from school for safety, especially that seems like an important amendment to support. Oh, you don't want the CDL requirement. Okay, sorry, Jim, I misinterpreted that. PSC wants it, but the Rural Education Center does not. Jim, would you put the acronym for CDL? I believe it's a driver's license, but remind us what the C stands for. Commercial driver's license. Thank you. Jackie and Nancy are holding me accountable to my acronym usage. Thank you. We have a lot of them in this space, that is for sure. Okay, I am going to pull up the agenda again. Make sure we are on track. I'm going to stop my share. While I'm doing that, we are crafting the weekly in-session agenda sort of on the fly as varying issues come up each week. And again, these first couple weeks of session are moving faster, really in a long session than I've ever seen before. So it is quite a bit to scramble to keep up with the volume of bills in what normally would be more of a marathon kind of a session. Normally we refer to the long session as a marathon, like they schedule policy bills, there's a little bit more pacing going on. What we think is happening right now is that they are trying to get as many bills through as early as possible because they anticipate a very robust revenue conversation towards the end of session. And there is an interest in holding time for those conversations, as well as for understanding what they're going to have to fund before they have a conversation around what level of revenue they would have to generate in order to fund the policies that they've moved forward. So that's my understanding of why things are moving faster in a long session than they really ever have before in my experience, is to allow space for revenue conversation. In a way that's good because it means no special session, hopefully. But what it does also mean for us is that if there are even good policies that we want to see continue to move forward, it will in some way put us in a position where we are likely to be asked, well, if you want special education funded at this level, we are going to have to raise revenue in some way to support funding this bill that you were supportive of Now, what do you think about revenue increases in order to support the bills that you care about? That puts us in a really precarious situation. At present, WSSDA has determined that, we're the K-12 experts, and we will continue to bring forward what school districts need in order to ensure that students and staff have the resources for basic education requirements that are in existing statute and what might be added to statute. It is the legislature's responsibility to determine how they're going to pay for it as part of their paramount duty. Okay. I do not see Melissa yet. And in the interest of time, what I'm actually going to do is move to MSOC because I think it's important for us to start the conversation. I want to share a couple resources. So if we go back to our agenda, enter full screen. We heard one of these bills just yesterday. So the Senate version of the bill, like I mentioned before, is Senator Noble's. It's at about 1/3 to 1/4 of the actual cost school districts need. 1338 is the House version of the bill that is much more robust and includes not just what we need now, but also a rebase, so every 4 years, so that it would keep up with rising inflation. If you attended legislative conference or received it from some other mechanism, there is a really great policy brief that WASA developed, and I would encourage you to download this resource and share it with your legislators. I continue to get questions from legislators about like, wait, MSOC covers more than just insurance and utilities. I think as we were advocating for an increase in funding, it was easy to describe why insurance and utilities was needed as a part of MSOC because all of us, even in our personal lives, have experienced an increase to those costs. But there's so much more to MSOC than that. And we need full and adequate rises in all of these categories. And so it's a real opportunity for you to educate your legislators about what MSOC fully entails and bring forward stories not just about utilities and insurance, but also about professional development, facilities maintenance, the types of resources that your students need to be able to learn and that your staff need to teach. So they aren't hearing as much about those stories and is an important part of the MSOC package. This is a nice little takeaway that you can print out and hand to your legislators or email them as part of an ongoing conversation we hope you are having throughout the session. Melissa's here. Okay. So I am going to close this and stop my share and give Melissa the opportunity to be a part of the conversation. She's going to be rejoining as a panelist, and I will give her co-host. There we go. Okay, Melissa, are you with us?
Yeah, you think I know how to do this by now. Oh, there. I think it's a little different. Okay. Oh, look, it's behind me. Hey,
I know.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on. I was just finishing, so my work, I work for the higher ed, our public four-year institutions. And so we were just having our meetings looking at the higher ed stuff. And I'm thankful that I work in the higher ed world because the K-12 world is really crazy good, I think. So I don't know, I caught a little bit of that you guys were talking about the MSOC handout. And I don't know if everyone has looked at these two bills. I was looking at the comparison.
Let me pull that up. Before
Yeah.
pulling that up, would you, just in case the attendees don't know who you are, would you just talk about local responsibility and WSSDA responsibility?
Yeah, I wish I could see like who was on here. Like I see that Derek is here. I see that Lilon is here. But I can't see who else is here. So I'm Melissa Beard. I'm board president for Tumwater School District. I'm WSSDA president-elect. And in a former life, I worked for a school district doing finance work, and then also worked for the Education Research and Data Center doing data work. And then before that, I was a budget advisor to Terry Bergeson. So that was a few state superintendents ago, but had been in this budget work. So I worked for Terry Bergeson before the McCleary stuff, and part of my work was to prove to the courts that we were underfunded, especially in this particular area. So we collected a lot of data from a lot of districts to talk about here's the funding you give and here's what districts are spending. So I don't know if people have had a chance to look at these two bills, and I'm struck by the fact, for the allocations. I went through, because I'm a numbers person, I added up what the current allocation is, which is almost $1,500. On the house, on the house column, it's about $1,500. And they want to increase each one. I also calculated what the increase was, about 25% to each of those, to $1,847, which obviously is more than the Senate. But let's, like, dollar amounts aside, a big difference is that they just turn this into the Senate just turns this into a lump sum versus, each of the categories, which is already in statute. All those categories are in statute. And just something to think about. I personally like these categories staying, because I want the legislature to be able to maybe increase the dial on utilities insurance. Maybe they should be increasing that 30%, and so we can see it. And it's one of the things about the prototypical funding model. We complain about the prototypical funding model, but let's just think about what we had before. What we had before was you get 46 teachers per 1,000 students, and that was it. And you get MSOCs, used to be called NERCs, non-employee related costs, and that was just an allocation. And my work when I worked for Terry was to unpack in these terms the 1,723, unpack it and figure out how much was spent on technology and utilities. So it's interesting. The Senate version has us going back to this lump sum. So I personally like, in terms of transparency, being clear. Now, where that can sometimes, this is just a funding model. And if you're not, sometimes the librarians get frustrated if you're not spending $22 per student on library materials. But, in most cases, this is still, we're still underfunded. So just something to think about when you're looking at these two bills is that allocation. The other thing that I liked is I liked the House. I like the House version. The review schedule. If you scroll down to the review schedule, granted, I don't like that they don't have to look at it till 2930. That seems kind of far, but gosh, I guess we're in 25. But it's not 1998 anymore. Anyway, 2029. I like that they're forced to rebase this based on our actual expenditures. So it's always going to lag, but just that hope that we're doing things right. We're going to have to front load these costs, but that hope in 4 years, we're all doing the right thing, that it's going to be recognized, which is new in this world. So I liked that part of things. Those are the two big things.
Yeah, I'm curious. Thank you for that insight. Another reason why we wanted to have this conversation around MSOC is we were invited when we testified yesterday and encouraged by legislative staff on the Senate side, which parts of the policies are preferable. It's a mouthful. Which parts of the policies are preferable? And so, I mean, it's really easy to say the one that gives us more money.
Right.
And so I think they get that, right? And we'll point to those areas. But there are other policy issues in here that could also be really beneficial. And so what we'd like to invite all of you to offer, and you are welcome to send that to me via email, or you can simply email strategicadvocacy@wasda.org. I'll put that in the chat in a minute. Which elements of these you would like to see in the final version of the bill, besides the obvious more money part, right? Like I get that. Is there a benefit? I'm curious if there would be a benefit to any of you thinking about a lump sum versus specified allocations by category. I haven't heard that argument yet, so maybe it just doesn't exist. But I'm curious why this idea even came up as opposed to this, besides the fact that this is just easier. I mean, that could very well be the reason. And then, there are some other elements to this that are also really great. Like in the House version, there's a small schools enhancement.
Yes. Yeah.
That seems critically important for our schools who need this type of resource and attention the most. No reference to that in the Senate version. So I think we do ourselves a favor by being a little bit more explicit with our policymakers about which parts of the policy are particularly important. And I would love to hear that from all of you via email as you have a chance to unpack this resource. Just as a side note, you all have a copy of the agenda. It's actually in the chat. Michelle shared it there so you can download it. It's also available when we send out the member update. So Sean sends out a member update that has a link to this recording, as well as any of the resource or the agenda. And this is hyperlinked in the agenda. So should be easily accessible to you there. But if you email me, I can email it back to you as well. Okay, sorry. Melissa, I just wanted to be sure to get those side notes in.
Yeah.
So anything, as you looked at this, Melissa, did you see anything in particular missing? If you were to judge both bills and put them together, like, does it get what we need? Or are there some other places missing that you were able to identify?
It's funny. I just, maybe I was just being, positive about it. Like, I really appreciated what they did do. And so I didn't really think of what
Yeah.
else, like
Yeah.
what? Like
Yep.
it would be based on actual, like, I am so into that. That is huge and really, that's different than I've ever seen come out before. So maybe I was just like, whoa, I'm just going to appreciate this. I'm not even going to think of what else, because if we could get that, that would be really helpful. I was looking at the questions. Dawn said our district would prefer if MSAC money was not available for salary negotiations. I just want to reference that during your budget presentation, you get a handout of, or you get a slide that says, here's how much we get in MSOCs, and here's how much we spend. And if you spend less in MSOCs than you get, that means it's going to salary. It's going to salaries. That's the only other place it can go. That is one of your accountability measures of the budget. So just, that's required by law that you are presented that in the budget presentation. So just a helpful tip when in terms of, it's hard to keep track of all the budget stuff, but that is one that helps us keep track. Is there is a slide that's required. But yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else that you've seen in the past, Marissa, that you thought, oh, too bad they didn't add that?
No, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it forward to the group today, is really to get feedback from all of you, where there might be something missing that they didn't consider. I mean, there's a lot. If you put the two bills together, there's a lot in them. I'm going to assume that it would be preferable that there were no new reporting requirements.
Yeah.
The Senate version of this would require that districts annually report to OSPI by category. your spending. So that seems like a pretty big lift, and sort of indicates a little bit of big brothering a little bit in a space where they have specifically told us there's flexibility to meet the needs of your students and your staff. So
Yeah, and I would also push back on that. The F-196, there are ways to get to this spending if they're wanting to make sure that that's all being spent in a way that I don't know, but if they want different reports, that just seems duplicative because your finance offices spend a lot of time reporting this. In so many different categories, so many different ways to roll it up. But
thank you so much for giving some insight and being here with us, especially with so much that you have going on. I am going to put the general strategic advocacy email address in the chat for all of you who have anything that you'd like to share. I'll be sure that Melissa also gets a chance to see them too, because she has particular passion and interest for this. Just consider both of us a resource as you have questions, and thanks for spending your lunchtime with us. Hopefully you got to eat while you were listening, and we'll see you next week.